today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. On the heels of a recent victory over Lucy Wildheart, former champion Mikaela Mayer says, "I'm right back in position to be in world title fight, which is where I belong."
Mikaela Mayer is the mandatory challenger by way of the WBC.
They let me know in the middle of the camp that the WBC interim title was going to be on the line, noted Mayer after her points win. "This makes me mandatory for the Taylor versus Serrano 2 winner, assuming that goes ahead later on this year. That gives me a lot of motivation. I'm right back in position to be in a world title fight, which is where I feel I belong."
I'm not actually convinced she's going to share the ring with Katie Taylor for a number of reasons.
Katie's about to head up to 140 pounds for the second time in her career. She's about to fight Chantel Cameron. If Chantel beats her, if Chantel wins, there may be a rematch. If she doesn't, she loses.
Maybe Katie stays up there.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
Maybe Katie does come back to the lightweight division, but she fights Amanda Serrano in a rematch instead. I don't see Mikaela Mayer in the immediate future for Katie Taylor, whether Katie wins or loses against Chantel Cameron.
She's just not part of that picture.
I have always wanted to fight Katie Taylor. It's been no secret. I've always wanted to challenge myself against her, admitted Mayer. I wouldn't mind having Serrano on my resume either. They're both great fighters. They've both done a lot for the sport. We'll see who comes out on top.
I don't know that she's going to be able to get Amanda Serrano in the ring either.
Let's say Katie Taylor goes up there. She loses to Chantel Cameron. They run it back. They see about having a rematch. Well, there goes the Serrano fight. There goes the Serrano rematch, at which point Mikaela could see about exploring a fight with Amanda, but who says Amanda wants to move back up to lightweight?
The payday for a Mikaela Mayer fight is not the same as the payday she'd get for a Katie Taylor fight. That's a big part of the incentive.
I mean, yeah, Amanda Serrano might be willing to fight Katie Taylor for a second time at lightweight because of the price and because it's for all the marbles.
Yeah.
It's for all the belts, whereas with Mikaela,
what's the incentive?
I vaguely recall seeing Amanda Serrano say that at this point in her career, she doesn't really want to have to fluctuate in weight anymore. She'd be willing to make an exception for Katie Taylor.
I'm not convinced she's going to go all the way up to 135 from 126 for Mikaela Mayer.
I'm just not convinced that Mayer versus Serrano or Mayer versus Taylor are realistic fights. They don't seem realistic to me, not right now.
So then who should Mikaela Mayer fight?
Maybe she can fight the winner of this weekend's fight to go down in France. The fight between unbeaten Estelle Mosley and Magali Rodriguez.
I think Estelle's going to win that fight. I think Estelle's going to win it on points. Maybe Mikaela Mayer can see about fighting her afterwards.
Estelle Mosley would be a respectable name on Mikaela's resume, an unbeaten fighter and a former gold medalist. Mikaela Mayer herself, she's a somebody in the sport of women's boxing, and that's the kind of fighter Estelle needs to be fighting. After this weekend's fight between Estelle and Rodriguez, maybe Mikaela can get in contact with her, see about fighting her.
Maybe.
She's going to need to find somebody. She's going to need to fight somebody because I don't get the sense she's on the eve of a Katie Taylor fight now that she's campaigning as a lightweight. Maybe she can see about fighting Heather Hardy or Melissa St. Ville. Maybe she can take on Norway's own Katarina Fenders.
She's campaigning as a lightweight now too. Mikaela is going to have to find someone to fight because, I reiterate, I don't think she's on the eve of a Katie Taylor fight.
I don't think she's on the eve of an Alicia Baumgartner rematch either. Rumor has it that Alicia may end up facing Christina Lenardatu, who was supposed to fight Mikaela a little over a week ago. Rumor has it Alicia may be fighting either Christina Lenardatu or Erica Cruz, and if she's fighting them, she's not fighting Mikaela. So Mikaela has to find someone to fight.
Maybe she can fight Estelle Mosley a couple of months from now. Maybe she can fight Heather Hardy, Melissa St. Ville.
What about Firuza Sharapova? Firuza Sharapova that gave Katie Taylor a very competitive fight not that long ago.
Firuza's going to be fighting in May. She'll be fighting Ruth Chazale.
If she wins, why don't Mikaela see about fighting her? A common opponent between her and Katie Taylor makes for an interesting fight.
The bottom line is they're going to have to comb through those ranks. They're going to have to come up with something because Mikaela's not on the eve of a Katie Taylor fight, even if she is in position by way of the WBC.
Katie's got a full plate. Maybe she gets beat by Chantel Cameron. Maybe she doesn't. Even if she doesn't, she's probably going to fight Amanda after that.
Mikaela Mayer wouldn't even come into it until the following year. So what will Mikaela do for what remains of this year?
That's the question. Men's lightweight, super lightweight news. Former unified lightweight champion Teofimo Lopez says, Ryan Garcia fucking quit. You gotta be willing to die for this shit.
There were a lot of boxing fans after the fight accusing Ryan Garcia of giving up, of quitting.
Myself, I didn't spend a lot of time on that. I can't tell you here and now that Ryan Garcia quit.
Not with any certainty.
Due to the circumstances ahead of the match, it could very well be that he quit, that he gave up just as easily as it could be that he couldn't recover from the shot. You have to remember, this was a guy who was not allowed to rehydrate properly. You hit a guy like that with a body shot, maybe he can't take it.
Can't recover.
Teofimo Lopez feels that Ryan quit. Andy Ruiz, he feels that Ryan quit as well.
Andy Ruiz says, I feel like he gave up. Ryan Garcia is accused of quitting in Gervonta Davis fight by ex-training partner Andy Ruiz,
who said on Instagram, Gervonta did what he had to do. Man, he won the fight, but I was rooting for Ryan. But he gave up, man. I feel like he gave up. I feel like he should have done what he had to do to win the fight. When we get down, we've got to get back up. We've got to ask God for the victory. When he got knocked down, we have to ask God for that victory. I feel like that's what he should have done. I still feel Ryan should have done more. He should have risked his life more.
Whenever the fight fans accuse a fighter of quitting, oftentimes people in the industry will push back against those comments.
They'll push back against the fans. But what about when those comments are coming from the fighters themselves?
Teofimo Lopez, Andy Ruiz.
You see a lot of fight fans saying that Ryan Garcia quit, that he gave up, and it's easy to push back against the fans, but what about the fighters? What happens when the fighters feel the same way that the fans do? At least some of them. Some of them feel that Ryan quit.
Teofimo Lopez thinks he quit. Andy Ruiz thinks he quit. Danny Garcia
thinks that he quit.
Carl Froch thinks that he quit.
These ain't Joe Blows that are sitting on their couch sanctimoniously criticizing Ryan Garcia for what they describe as quitting. These are fighters.
You gonna tell them they don't know what they're talking about?
They saw the same fight that me and you did, and they came to the conclusion that Ryan gave up. He quit.
That's important.
Teofimo Lopez, Andy Ruiz, Danny Garcia, Carl Froch,
Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., Mexican boxing legend,
El Gran Campeón.
He says Ryan quit.
Says it wasn't even a punch. I'm not going to watch him anymore. I don't want to watch any more Ryan Garcia fights. Count me out.
A lot is being made about what the fight generated at the box office and what it made at the gate.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
That is the added value that Ryan Garcia brought to the table. Make no mistake. Ryan is what made that possible. That reaction and that big business, because Gervonta Davis himself had already been on pay-per-view 5 times, and he never once put up numbers like this.
And he'll be lucky, damn lucky, if he ever sees numbers like that again.
Ryan Garcia is responsible for the profile that this fight had. And in many ways, Ryan is responsible for the fight even happening. Because most of these other guys, most of these other young guys, they're not going to let Gervonta Davis jerk him around the way Ryan let him jerk him around. Ryan is the reason that the fight happened, and Ryan is the reason that the fight sold.
Not Gervonta.
Not Gervonta. Gervonta might have won.
We know that on his own, he's only good for a little over 200,000 buys. It's Ryan that added all this value, but unfortunately, Ryan screwed the pooch in the eyes of many. Ryan gave up.
It was boxing scribe Dan Rayfield post-fight who described Ryan Garcia as having total class, no excuses. He said he'll be back at 140, wishes Tank all the best in his career, got caught and just couldn't recover in time. Dan Rayfield may be more forgiving of Ryan Garcia than these aforementioned parties, these aforementioned fighters, Teofimo Lopez, Andy Ruiz, Carl Froch,
Julio Cesar Chavez,
Danny Garcia. When it comes to Ryan Garcia, they think that he quit, and that is a hell of an indictment in this sport where you're expected to give it your all. It's expected that things are going to get hard, that things are going to get difficult. It's expected.
You have to endure. You have to have the intestinal fortitude to do it. And because in the eyes of many, Ryan doesn't.
He definitely added a lot of value to this past weekend's fight. Make no mistake. He definitely made it happen and made it big, because Gervonta, he couldn't do it on his own. Don't let his mouth-breathing fans fool you.
You're only good for a little over 200,000 buys, you butterball.
Ryan is what made this past weekend's fight big, but now that the fight is over and the dust is settled, his stock has taken a critical hit, because in the eyes of many, he's a quitter. He quits. Very hard to recover from. I've always looked at Ryan Garcia as a guy who's all about the shortcuts.
In many ways, social media allowed him a shortcut to make more money than the average fighter his age. The average fighter at that stage in their career
Was a shortcut. Most fighters with a record like Ryan Garcia's are nowhere near as popular as Ryan Garcia, making the kind of money that Ryan Garcia makes. In many ways, that was a shortcut. And fighting Gervonta Davis, that was a shortcut as well.
Everybody had their thoughts ahead of the fight before it, but in the fight, we saw that stage was too big for him, and he wasn't ready for that fight.
Unready. Instead of keeping busy with solid and capable fighters at lightweight and super lightweight, he wanted to fast-track himself into this Gervonta Davis fight that we now know he wasn't ready for.
Wasn't ready, but he's all about the shortcuts.
When he was running around telling everybody that he doesn't care about belts, he doesn't want to fight for them, I interpreted that as a shortcut too, because of the responsibilities that come with fighting for belts.
They want to do things the hard way.
It was another shortcut. Here you have a young guy who's never even fought for an alphabet title, fighting in a major fight, at least commercially.
And it's because of the shortcuts.
That's how you can explain Ryan's performance and simultaneously explain the commercial value of the match. That for a guy who's green, he's worth a lot of money.
That's because he took shortcuts. A lot of them.
Now he has to rebuild and recover. I don't know that he can. I don't know that he has the intestinal fortitude to do it because, as stated, he always struck me as a guy who's focused on shortcuts.
Who's this guy going to beat at 140 pounds? Who's he going to beat of any note, any value?
140 pounds is not a division for the faint of heart.
Got stopped by a little butterball in Gervonta Davis at 136. What are those guys at 140 going to do to you?
I'll be honest, the future is uncertain for Ryan Garcia. I don't know what success, if any, he is going to have moving forward.
Can't blame it on his trainer. It's not down to trainers. He's had both Eddie Reynoso and Joe Goosen training him, two of the more decorated trainers in the sport.
No, it's not down to trainers and giving the team a complete overhaul. Put simply, it's down to dedication or the lack thereof. And Ryan's striking me as a guy who's all about shortcuts. I really don't know what's going to happen to him.
I don't.
I think his stock this past weekend took a critical hit. He had the potential to become one of the sport's brightest young stars, but he's the one who wanted to take shortcuts.
And it is what it is.
Finally, in men's heavyweight news, revisiting the fallout of Joe Joyce's big upset loss to Zhilei Zhang, Zhang's co-manager, I think we'll see the Joyce rematch, but it doesn't have to happen next.
So what will?
In defeating Joe Joyce, Zhilei Zhang became the mandatory challenger for Alexander Usyk, one of three.
But he's not about to fight Alexander, is he?
Definitely. We're working with them again, Terry Lane, co-manager of Zhang, said of Queensbury, and Zhang in an interview with IFL TV. We were treated very well. We're coming back. Thank you to the Warrens and all the team. We're coming back. It's in the contract, Lane said of the rematch clause. I do think we'll see it. It doesn't have to be next, but I'm sure we're going to talk to Queensbury, George Warren and Francis Warren, and everybody soon.
Terry Lane, the son of late referee Mills Lane, who shares the managerial duties for Zhang with his brother Tommy, feels the sky's the limit for their charge after the win over Joe Joyce.
It's amazing how quickly things can change in the sport of boxing. In the heavyweight division in particular, where most every single fighter is just one punch away from getting stopped, from being knocked out. It's an ambiguous division, to say the least.
It is.
Listen, you're talking to the least surprised person on the planet right now, Lane said. This is why we wanted this fight. We felt this is what would happen. I feel like we represent the best heavyweight in the world. We want the big fights. We want WBC heavyweight titleist Tyson Fury. But listen, we're just wanting to do this for the fans. Let's go, Tyson, in Wembley or something like that.
I'm still not sure that Tyson's gonna willfully decide to fight a guy like this, a statuesque southpaw with a hard punch.
We'll see. When Terry Lane says that the rematch with Joe can happen, but it doesn't have to be next, I happen to agree.
Zhilei Zhang beat Joe Joyce comprehensively. He beat him decisively.
We don't need to see that again straight away. Moreover, I don't know that Joe can change that much from one fight into the other, that the rematch would go any differently.
Might not.
But when it comes to a potential rematch with Joe, Zhang would like for it to take place in China.
Not the first time we've heard of that.
China's no third world country. It's a very big place. Good economy, lots of people, but it's not a boxing market, you understand. Not very many fighters and not very many champions come out of China. So while it has the potential to be a big fight in China,
it was said after the fight that something like 14 million people tuned in to see Zhang win that fight.
And that's a lot of people. Is that enough to get some wealthy millionaire or billionaire in China? Is that enough to get them to invest in that fight and bring it to China? Because Frank Warren don't promote shows in that region of the world.
If you want to do do a show in China, you're going to need a point man. You're going to need a guy on the ground.
That's where the opening ceremony of the Beijing 2008 Olympic Games was held, and it has also witnessed the opening ceremony of the 2022 Winter Olympics. 2 Olympics, you know. I wish the fight could be there, Zhang told CGTN in Europe. Joyce has asked for the rematch and asked for the date and the location. I actually don't mind about the when and the where. Of course, it would be better if it could happen in China so that the Chinese boxing fans can see a championship heavyweight fight. If Joyce decides to have an interim fight to bounce back, then Zhang would likely step in the ring with someone like unified world champion Alexander Usyk.
Not just yet. Alexander's supposed to be fighting Daniel Dubois. We've talked about that here on the channel. So who does Zhang fight while he waits?
Now I can fight against Usyk. So my next plan is, of course, to fight against him. My team have been talking with Usyk's team about a day and venue of the competition. That needs a lot of negotiations, Zhang said. I'm very confident. My goal is to become the world boxing champion. Now, I am only one step away from that goal, so I will train harder. I will make myself stronger and hope I can defeat Alexander Usyk to become the first heavyweight boxing champion in China's or even Asia's history. I like to challenge the strongest, as I said before the fight. Only by defeating the strongest can one become stronger.
He's saying that he wants Usyk.
But he's not next in the rotation. Hypothetically speaking, if you did do Zhang versus Usyk in China, a lot of people, at least in China, they'd watch it.
Southpaw versus Southpaw.
A real David and Goliath kind of deal. David and Goliath kind of situation. Most every situation for Usyk at heavyweight is a David and Goliath kind of situation.
But he's got to fight Daniel next, doesn't he?
As I said before the fight, only by defeating the strongest can one become stronger, and now people probably think that I am not strong enough because there are real boxing champions above me, like Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. Although Joshua is not a champion now, he mastered the sport and has ruled for many years. They're all strong fighters, so I want to challenge any of them. In this way, I can gradually become stronger. I will show everyone, show the world, to all the boxing fans, Chinese power.
Kung Pao!
I could go for any of those fights. Zhang versus Fury, Zhang versus Usyk, Zhang versus Joshua. They're all good fights.
But Fury might end up fighting Andy Ruiz. Usyk might end up fighting Daniel Dubois.
Anthony Joshua may end up having a rematch with Dillian White over the summer months, so where does that leave Zhang?
It's a question.